right. And you used to be the state representative of Washington State Legislative District 39. And
First elected in 2018 for this position, re-elected in 2020, and lost my second re-election in 2022. And I'm challenging the seat back now in 2024.
Right, and we actually had you back in here for, not back in here, we had you in here originally to have a discussion about that, and there was a little bit of drama. Not that there's anything weird with drama in politics, right? But I felt like it was there was a spike above the baseline drama.
Well, it makes the Seattle Times, the Everett Herald, the Linwood Times, Como News, when it hits to that level,
everybody
it's elevated.
Dogpiled you, right?
It's elevated,
and so you ended up losing, which we'll get into kind of the details of that, and now you're running against, even though you're kind of an incumbent, you're running against the incumbent that you lost to your incumbency to previously, right?
Even according to the PDC, I am allowed to use the term re-elect.
Okay.
When you're running for the same position that you've been elected in before and you lose and you're running for it again, you can use the word re-elect. So
okay,
that's kind of how that works.
Got it. Well, Robert, thanks again for taking the time to come in for an interview again. It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. We had a good interview last time.
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to know is what's driving you to just not simply hang up your hat and be like, you know what, I'm done with all this mess of politics and I'm just going to go home and have a beer.
Well, I do that too.
Yeah.
But I have 4 kids, and I do not wish to see the direction we're going now is not good, and I do not wish to hand this off to them without at least doing the best I can to make a change for the better in politics and in Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm doing it for my kids and my grandkids.
For maybe the future for future generations, kind of as a more general.
Yeah, and of course, if I'm fighting for my kids' future, I'm fighting for everyone's kids' future.
Mm-hmm.
There's that saying that our goal in life here in America should be to leave the place better than it was when you entered the world.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me it's getting worse, not better. Maybe the first generation or two where our kids are having a heck of a time. My kids can't afford a home. I don't know how they're going to make it in a system like this with things so expensive, crime on the rise, and all the political mess, our rights being violated, things like that. They're going to have a tough time. And so that's what motivates me.
Got it. And we'll take some time later to get into the specifics of those things that you're finding distasteful that you want to change, right? So before we get into any of that, when you were last in here, we kind of had a cliffhanger of a story, right? So you were still in the legislature. This was mid-COVID when all the rules totally made sense. Isn't that right? All rules, like everything made complete sense and was absolutely logical and for good reasons for all the weird stuff that we did.
I couldn't work in my office alone, door closed, but I could go to a conference room with 30 other people that weren't vaccinated and work there.
That completely makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that logic whatsoever. Now, you violated the perfect logic. Theoretically. You theoretically violated the perfect logic. They had an angle on you from a security camera where somebody got into your space. Correct me if I'm remembering this incorrectly. Somebody got into your space.
And let me correct something, because I didn't violate anything. I was following the rules exactly.
Okay, got it.
Let's just put that out there.
So somebody gets into your space, and he was a big guy, if I remember correctly.
Bigger than me.
And if somebody aggressively gets into your space, it's kind of like, okay, you know, what's going on here? And I think you were a little energetic, to say the least, in the video. And at some point, you had your arms raised, and someone took a flash frame of that. You know, it looked like the perfect angle where you started it. Right? You started it.
If you take a 5-minute, 3 to 5 minute conversation and take one picture and say, this is the whole thing, you're never going to get that right. The picture, the one I believe you're referencing to, I was trying to get my point across to the sergeant at arms, and he wasn't letting me. He was shouting me down. And so I had pulled one arm back, and I was pointing. He thought I was trying to get in a J-Law building where my office was at, where I'm like, no, I want to go into the ledge building.
And did it look like a fist in the picture?
Well, I was pointing, if I remember. I don't know. This one, who knows?
Yeah.
I've seen the picture, but I don't recall. And they won't show the one where he's in my face, like trying to throw me off campus. I mean, I've got that picture too. So two pictures. One, he looks like the aggressor, and the other one, I'm still on the defense. I'm just saying, hey,
I'm going over there.
Yeah, you've got the story wrong. If you just let me speak, I'll explain this to you. But that was it. It didn't have to be, but it turned into a fairly heated conversation. It started out, where I hear someone yelling from behind me.
Yeah.
I turn around and I see a guy I've never met before in street clothes yelling at me, coming at me. So that got me very concerned very quickly as a legislator.
Right. Do I need to put my fist up? Do I need to run? Yeah.
Because it was a Saturday morning, hardly anyone around, so I'm almost on my own. There was a security guard in the building, but he's in the building, and I'm outside the building. So he gets in my face, ordering me off campus, yelling at me, screaming at me, you know you're not supposed to be here, you're not vaccinated, you need to leave the campus right now, on and on and on. And I'm like, whoa, who are you?
Yeah.
I didn't even know who he was. Who are you? You're ordering me around like this. I'm in session.
I'm a state rep.
I'm a state representative. I'm going to my committee. I'm trying to get into the building because I have a committee to go to.
I work here.
Yeah. And I didn't get into you're interfering with my duties as a state rep, which is a RCW violation. I didn't have a chance to say, hey, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you telling me to leave? Mm-hmm. So it took a while, a few minutes, to where I was able to get the point across. I'm not trying to get into my office. I'm trying to get into where I'm allowed to be, which is the legislative building. And he's like, oh, well, the state police have the keys to that building. And then I looked at him. I go, you're kidding me. That's all I ever wanted. When we called for help and you showed up, that's all the information I ever wanted. Mm-hmm. Who opens the doors to a building I'm allowed to be in? And I go, you're kidding me. You put us through all this when all you had to do was tell me who controls that building.
So the result of this is all the newspapers and media that you just suggested dogpiling you, saying that look at how aggressive Robert Sutherland is, breaking all the rules and all this stuff. And there's in the legislature there's what was it, the ERC, the Executive Rules Committee?
Yes.
They found doesn't mean it's true. They found that you violated a rule. Right?
Code of conduct, yes.
And the last we spoke, this was the cliffhanger, is you had filed an appeal to the violation.
That's correct.
That's the last I heard.
And I'm going to back the story up because I think anyone watching this would want to know some of the background because then it starts making sense.
Okay.
This incident that we're talking about was March 5th of 2022, about 2 years ago.
So, in the middle of it. The craziness, yeah.
Yeah, we were in our last days of the 2022 session. I think that ended March 10th. So here it was Saturday, March 5th, and I'm attempting to go to my transportation committee. Now, 3 months prior to that, and this is where it gets interesting and things will start making sense, I filed a lawsuit against the ERC, specifically, and the ERC, the Executive Rules Committee, made up of 7 House members, 4 top Democrats and 3 top Republicans. The lawsuit was against the 4 top Democrats for their rules going into the next session, which they were going to prevent people like me that weren't vaccinated and weren't willing to show medical records. There was about 20-something of us. They were going to keep us out of the legislature.
Basically, we can keep out the other side from voting.
Most people that were going to fall in this category would have been Republicans, most if not all.
Uh-huh.
So they would have been able to go down to Olympia and serve their constituents on the House floor where we weren't going to be allowed on campus. We'd have to work from home in the middle of winter with our own internets going down on the whole bit. So that was the purpose of the lawsuit, to make sure we could serve our constituents, as the Constitution says, Washington State Constitution, that we will do so in Olympia, and we'll do so on the House floor in the legislative building. So that was the lawsuit against the 4 top Democrats and the chief clerk, Bernard Dean, who would be the person responsible for implementing the rules. A couple months later, I'm under investigation by the ERC, by the incident we just discussed with the Sergeant-at-Arms. They took that story and flipped it, that I was the aggressor, and they charged me with a code of conduct and found me guilty. So I then appealed it, and this is where I think we ended our last conversation.
And I have a question before we go in there.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. So, I mean, there's no court here. Right, there's no. This isn't a justice go before the court and you're charged with this or whatever. This is just some committee. So they find you guilty of an ethics violation. What does that mean? So, like, what, does that prevent you from doing something? Like, what does that do?
There's eventually two charges. One is a code of conduct. The other is an ethics. So there's two pieces to this. At the time we last spoke, I'm not sure we even got into the ethics charge. They amped it up when I appealed. They're like, you want to appeal? We'll show you what we can do. It's kind of that game. And you're right. It's 5 individuals, Democrats, dealing with me, a Republican, what I call a real Republican. So I fight bad bills as hard as I can. I'm loud and I'm proud is what I say. They prefer you being quiet, sit down, and let's not bring too much attention to this bad bill. I do public hearings on election integrity stuff where they say you shouldn't be doing that. So I'm the kind of Republican that a lot of people in this state like, but a lot of people in Olympia don't like. I'm a fish out of water a little bit, if you will, down in Olympia. So I appealed this code of conduct violation, which is a very minor thing. What they had me do is go through some respectful workplace retraining. And I got to spend a couple of weeks with a lady that was kind of, I call it a psych eval.
Yeah.
But I had a good time with her. I learned some good stuff from her, so that was good. So I did that. I spoke with this psychologist, and I did their respectful workplace requirements of retraining and all that. Did that while the appeal was going on. They denied my appeal. And there's 3 stages to what a legislator can do to help protect them against this exact thing. Eventually, it does go out of their hands. They denied my appeal for it to go out of their hands the first time and off campus so that an independent investigative agency could look into the facts. I had security video that is in my favor. I had a photograph in my favor. I've got the government testimony all saying what I was saying in my report. It's a slam dunk if it's fair in my favor. So they denied my appeal to have it go to an outside investigative agency. And that's a violation of a House rule. It says if there's a conflict between those charging me with something and myself, that's a right of a legislator to get it out of their hands.
It can automatically just...
It should be automatically. Well, they denied that too. So I had to continue dealing with them. But then they amped it up, if you will, and they said, well, this, after our investigation, this might be an ethics violation, which is...
So what was the original violation? It wasn't ethics. It was
a code of conduct.
Code of conduct violation.
A respectful workplace code of conduct. You were mean to someone.
Right. Okay.
You spoke in a demeaning way, or it's relatively minor. You don't ever want to be guilty of that either. I've never been accused or charged anything of the kind. I had very good working relationships with everybody. Sorry to
interrupt you again. The thing is so confusing to me. So you got this code of conduct violation charged, whatever.
Yeah.
And as annoying as that is, what does it do? Like, if you just ignored it and moved on with your life, does it hamper you from doing something moving forward?
Well, here's the goal of them.
Yeah.
So they find me guilty of a code of conduct, and then they have me do the retraining.
Sure.
Talk to she's not a psychologist, whatever she was. Yeah. They have me do these things. And if you don't do those things, they got you. Because now they take away they can take away your office, your parking spot, your legislative assistant. They can start doing more things to you.
So it's kind of a wedge for them to get into the door to get more impactful actions against you.
They took a situation that should have just been dropped and let go, and they turned it into an investigation, found me guilty, and had me do these other things.
Got it.
In hopes, I believe, of trying to get me to break, be stubborn and not do it or whatever, and then they can do more to me to flex their muscles, if you will. Intimidate me.
Yeah.
I just complied with their request happily. It was kind of fun almost. Well, the respectful workplace, you had to go through slides with the attorney, house attorney. It was hard that you had to try to stay awake, but it's always good to get retraining because I did learn something in there, which was, that's where I learned actually that there's a House rule, because he's going over House rules with me now, that a legislator can appeal and get it off campus if there's a conflict. And I looked at the House attorney, Ohad. It's a Zoom meeting, but I looked at him, I go, Ohad.
Thank you.
The 5 people involved in my investigation and my guilty are the 5 defendants in my lawsuit that's ongoing right now. It didn't conclude till July of 2022. I go, that's a conflict. He struggled in his seat, he squirmed, I go, that's a that's a conflict, Ohad, right? And he goes, well, I can see your point. I go, thank you, and so I'm going to appeal this. And that's what I did, but they denied it.
And now they're ramping up the ethics
and then
charge.
they throw in an ethics complaint, and when there's an ethics complaint, now it goes to a different group of people. It's a committee of legislators and some community members. I forget the exact makeup, but some of the same members on the ERC were on that committee. So that's the LEB, the Legislative Ethics Board. So there's the House. I forgot the name of the Legislative Ethics Board, and then the House people. I forgot their acronym. So now I'm under investigation by the Legislative Ethics Board, the LEB people. They basically take the report from the House, Bernard Dean, that he created, and sent to the Executive Rules Committee. That's what I was trying to think of. They basically just took that report and rubber stamped it. Some of their conclusions were contradictory to the report, and it's like, well, what you're saying is what I was saying down here, but they found me guilty. Okay. So both reports fairly confusing. The way that it's a very simple matter. 3-minute conversation, went south a little bit, and that was that.
No harm, no foul. Yeah.
You would think this was a murder investigation. Anyway, it goes to them, and they find me guilty as well, and fine me $1,500. So there's a third action a legislator can take. If that's the case, if it's an ethics violation, you're found guilty, you can call for a public hearing. If you disagree, public hearing. And if you lose that, then you can call for a public trial.
So now we're actually in court at that point.
That last step is you're in court with a judge and jury. But I'm in the first step of that.
Oh, so this is still going? You're still...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. That's why we're having this discussion, because you heard the beginning of this story, but the middle and end, you or your listeners haven't heard. And to me, it's pretty interesting, because we get to learn just how broke Olympia is, and what they do to legislators that don't conform to what they think you should be conforming. It gets...
sounds to me like it's not broke. It sounds to me like it's functioning exactly the way somebody intends it to function.
It is working how it is intended by the majority party, which is why, to get back to your original question, what motivates me? I've got 4 children that are going to inherit this, and it's not good. In my opinion, it's not good. It needs fixing. So I refer to it as broke. They would say it's working just fine. So ethics board finds me guilty of not a code of conduct. It was I draw a blank sometimes. I'm trying to think of these details. Basically, using my authority and position as an elected official to get a special privilege, I think they call it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
In their case, the special privilege is
something like corruption.
I'll give you an example of a special privilege. It's getting something you're not supposed to have. Maybe you're using your power as a legislator to get a bill,
get a free meal,
anything that you're talking to someone else's legislative assistant. You need to come. I'm busy. You need to come help me. And as a legislator, they're feeling terrible because they're just a hired hand, and that would be using my influence as a legislator to get something I'm not allowed to have. Okay, so that's what they charged me with, dealing with the sergeant at arms, and found me guilty. In their report, see, to find me, to charge me with that, there has to be, I'm trying to get something I'm not allowed to have.
What's the thing? But
if you read the House report, it's like, where is it? You're accusing me of this stuff, and then in your report, it's like it's buried.
There's a charge. There's 4 elements to this charge. You're missing this key element, right? What's this element? Yeah.
And they're saying that I was trying to gain entry into a building I was not authorized to be in. And I'm reading the report, and I'm like, what building? There's a lot of buildings, and I'm allowed in some and not in others. So which one are you referring to? It's buried. I found it. They're referring to JLOB, the John L. O'Brien building where my office is at, where I'm not allowed to be.
Which you were never trying to get into.
That was
which
not
is what you told the sergeant at arms.
Right. The only reason I was in the building I'm allowed to be in and the one I'm not are like 150 feet away. I had tried to get in the ledge building. It was locked. I walked back over to the JLOB building, talked to the security officer to ask if he could let me into the other building. That's why I was there. He didn't have the key. He says, let me make a phone call. I'll find out who has it, and we'll get you in. I go, appreciate it. Sergeant Arms shows up yelling and screaming at me, ordering me off campus. So that kind of ties that story in. But that's the ethics charge. I'm using my power and influence over this big guy who's yelling at me, threatening me, and assaulting me to get into JLOB. Absolutely not true. Now, no one has to take my word for it because the security guard mentioned I was trying to get in the ledge building. The sergeant at arms mentioned I was trying to get in the ledge building. The sergeant at arms' wife, who was there taking pictures, mentioned I was trying to get into the ledge building. Who am I missing?
We got 3 people right there. That's pretty good. Yeah.
There's 3 or 4 of their witnesses that say I'm trying to get in the ledge building. They find me guilty of trying to get in the JLOB building. Made it up. Mm-hmm. They just made it up. Nothing I can do. So I call for a public hearing. That's what I can do, I guess. But I can't appeal this. There's no reasoning on this stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not even allowed in a room where they're discussing it, so I can help them get the facts straight.
Right.
So I call for a public hearing. That's the second step in this. That is ongoing. I don't remember the exact timeline. So we were in March. So we're now into April, May, June for the public hearing. And it was set for, by the way, December 5th, if I recall. So we're at December 4th. My attorney, and by the way, so the ethics, when it's public hearing, the matter goes to the Attorney General's office now.
Oh, you got a friend in there, I'm sure.
So they have a team of attorneys on this now. I don't know how many, but I know it's more than one. Mm-hmm. They have a team of attorneys. I have my own attorney. And we're the day before the public hearing, and I'm looking forward to this. Now, I already knew the outcome. It was going to be not good for me because even though it's a public hearing and there is an administrative, like law clerk or a judge, overseeing the proceedings, that person doesn't get to decide the fate.
Who gets to decide?
The ERC.
Okay.
So I knew it wasn't going to go well for me.
Yeah.
Because of who's going to determine whether or not I'm guilty or innocent. Mm-hmm. It's to this point, it's a game you're not going to win. We were the day before the actual hearing. Now, again, I'm going to expect to lose, and then I'm going to call for a public trial.
Right.
And I'm going to have a jury, and we're going to go through the data and the evidence, which is all exculpatory for me. Mm-hmm. So that's my goal. Day before the public hearing, my attorney is dealing with the Attorney General's office, and they're all trying to settle this. They're like, "Listen, we'll draft this petition, and we'll sign that, and we'll just be done with it." Well, this petition says that I admit, guilt.
I admit everything,
and I'm going to pay this fine, and blah blah blah. And I looked at my attorney. I go, "I'm not signing that. Let's go to the public hearing tomorrow. Let's show the world the evidence that we have showing I'm innocent." Mm-hmm. Even if they find me guilty, they'll look foolish, in my opinion, when they see the evidence and they say, nope, you were trying to get in JLOB. So, but my attorney and their attorneys were really wanting to settle. And what the Attorney General's office did to help sweeten the pot, I guess, is to inform my attorney that, if we proceed, they're going to charge $25,000 for attorney's fees. Now the fine at the moment was $1,500 from the House. They bumped it up to $2,500 when the ethics board found me guilty. So $2,500. Now they're saying, listen, if we don't settle this, we're gonna request attorney's fees, and we've got a team of attorneys working on this. That got me. My attorney was like, Robert, as your attorney, they own you. They're gonna $2,500 is a lot better than $25,000. And you still aren't going to get the innocent charge verdict that you're looking for. I said, I'm not signing that document. We're going to rewrite this document. Mm-hmm. And we're 18 hours of. I mean, we're getting late in the afternoon where we got to drive to Olympia, get some sleep, and the next morning is the hearing, and we're already late in the afternoon now, going back and forth with the Attorney General's office on the wording. I admitted no guilt, and I said if there was a, I forget the exact wording, if there was an independent investigation over the facts and stuff, I would most likely be found innocent or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I signed that, and I paid the $2,500. So I didn't get my public trial. They would have bankrupt my family. And my attorney let me know in no uncertain terms, Robert, I don't have time to go on to a public trial. We have to settle this. So I was going to lose my attorney, get a hefty fine, and still have nothing to show for it.
Yep.
So that's how they get you to settle and to back down and to stop fighting. That's what they did to me anyway. And so that's where we're at today. Now, I guess the last step in that is we're going into the 2022 re-election. So this
the story we're going into the 2022 re-election?
No, my lawsuit was November of 2021. March of 2022 was the incident with Sergeant at Arms. That whole thing brought us to July or December. Mm-hmm. December of 2022. And it's re-election time. Yeah, so if we back that up, November is the election, and this went on till December, even a month after the election. But once they had the guilty from the ethics board and the House, the Seattle Times jumps in.
Sure.
The Everett Herald, the Linwood Times, Como, they all jump in and basically take a strong, dedicated Republican and start hammering me. We see what they do to President Trump, other Republicans, and that's what they turned on me. And they started really hammering, Sutherland found guilty, the whole bit. You can imagine that. Subsequently, I lost my re-election in 2022. Prior to this incident, I would win by 20 points. I'd spend maybe $20,000, $25,000 and win by 20 points. Because of the tenseness of that particular race, I happened to raise like 50,000. Most I'd double what I'd raised in the past. And I won, although I won the primary barely. I lost in the general when my opponent, Republican opponent, and I made it through. Democrats had no one to vote for. The Democrat unions and the Democrat Party, they were saying vote for Lowe. I would say he's a lesser of a Republican, and they would prefer that over me. And so that's how I lost that election. Mm-hmm. And 2 years later, here I am. I'm challenging the seat back.
Yeah, so you made it through the primary. Sam Lowe, the current incumbent who took your seat from the last round, made it through the primary. So because we're in Washington State, we got a jungle primary. Yep. So we got two Republicans facing off. So do you mind if your story's wrapped up, do you want to switch over to your campaign?
Sure, and I'll wrap it up like this. Because we just came through the primary. So my opponent, he was able to raise $150,000, $200,000. I raised $15,000. The Democrat unions, WEA, SEIU, and left-leaning special interest groups and PACs put out a ton of flyers. Well, that's this race. They came in on that race as well, and they voted for the Democrat-like Republican, and I ended up losing that election. And I just realized I switched stories on two elections. So my apologies. We were talking about this election. We just made it through the primaries of what I wanted to talk about.
Yes.
So on this election where I'm challenging that seat, that's when the SEIU, WEA, and the special interest groups and the PACs came in with flyers, negative flyers against me, hammering me, and combined between my opponent and his special interest groups, PACs, and others, spent I'm upwards of $500,000
on a local state rep LD
with two Republicans in it. So you're going to get a Republican. A race that you typically don't have to spend $20,000-$25,000 on.
Yeah, there's state races that haven't spent near that much.
And they spent close to $500,000 to bump me out in the primary, hoping a Democrat and Sam Lowe would make it through. Mm-hmm. And then at least they've got a Democrat they could possibly support if they wanted to. I spent literally $15,000. My strategy is superior. I'm very efficient with money and how I run my campaigns and the strategy. So I was able to make it through, although I'm 10 points behind. 2 years
in the primary.
In the primary.
Now that doesn't necessarily half the people voted in the primary amongst right.
As we go into the general,
it's not necessarily a poll. That is the point that I'm trying to make here. Yeah,
it's a poll from those who voted, but only half the people voted.
Right.
We're going to double roughly the amount of people voting in the general as we move forward. So it was a good indication to me that their negative ads and their flyers that they sent out spent $500,000. Unfortunately, that works. It didn't work as well. I'm sure they're looking at each other going, we just spent $500,000 and he's still in the race, right? It didn't work to their expectations, but it worked to where instead of me being up, I'm down. So they were able to take some votes away from me with their negative ads, all untruthful. But again, you hammer someone with lie after lie, half-truth that leads you to believe something that's not true, that works. Even if I had the money, I wouldn't want to do that. I keep it as positive as I can, and I lay out the facts. Because now that my opponent has a voting record, let's look at his voting record.
Well, that actually leads to my first question about campaign.
Go ahead.
Right? So from a meta view, right? Not knowing any, I walk into the room, I don't know anything about these two candidates. I'm a Republican, and I'm like, well, I see two Republicans going off at each other here. One's an incumbent, one's challenging him. Like I said, I don't even know that you are also an incumbent. Just 30,000-foot view here. And I'm going, what's this challenging Republican going to do that the current Republican's not currently doing?
And that was my strategy going into this election.
Okay, so let's hear the answer.
We did. Yeah. We had a letter writing campaign, hand addressed envelopes, stamps, return envelopes, return addresses, and we put in a letter from me, and then data from the CPAC, from the JBS John Birch Society. CPAC is the Conservative Political Action Committee, which we see them nationally. President Trump talks. I mean, it's the biggest conservative thing going on in this country, right? So this now that we're 2 years into Sam Lowe's being a state rep, he's got a voting record. What I found out was CPAC and the JBS John Birch Society, the JBS people, they rate legislators on their conservativeness, if you will. They had rated me, so I looked mine up and I looked up my opponents. They rated me at 94% conservative, and my opponent at 65% conservative. One of the lowest Republicans, by the way.
In the state legislature?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The JBS rated me at 100%, and my opponent at, I'm forgetting his number, is 60-something, 50%. There we go. And that was the lowest number of a Republican. Mm-hmm. So he's the lowest ranked Republican from JBS, and I'm the highest. You can't get higher than 100%. This went into my letter. So it's just, now it's data. People are wondering, well, who's who here? Mm-hmm. Which one do I pick and why? Well, if you want a real Republican, a conservative that stands up to our conservative values and votes no on bad bills, yes on good bills, if you want that kind of a Republican, you might want to consider me. If that doesn't matter to you so much, you just want to work across the aisle and have your rep pass bills that are bad for you. Substitute House Bill 2368, for instance.
Can you give me a couple examples of these bad bills you're alluding to?
Yeah, Substitute House Bill 2368. Not only did my opponent vote for it, he sponsored it.
And what's in the bill?
And what's in the bill is, long story short, it's only a 4-page bill. It's easy to read. They want to take Washingtonians' taxpayer money and give it to those coming across our borders illegally. It's an incentive to have those coming across our borders come to Washington. You're going to get a bunch of free stuff.
And then, I mean, in terms of the way they're wording it, this is to help migrant and oppressed people who need help. Is it direct, like here's cash? Is it help with food? Like what's
all of the above?
All the above, housing.
So we already have a department in Washington State. I forget the exact name of it that does this already. There's a class of people, I don't remember the term, that even in Washington, if you're of this class, and I believe it's those that are here, and you can't prove you're not here on a H-1B1 visa. If you're an undocumented, then you don't qualify for a lot of these benefits. So in the bill was to redefine that to include those who are here undocumented.
I think the way that they do this, because I've got business interests in Oregon, and so sometimes I'm looking through Oregon legislation, right, is they say we don't discriminate on, race, sex, gender, national origin, or residency status.
Correct.
Right? Was it something like just slipping in?
I read their...
Yeah.
At the beginning of a bill, they always have definitions.
Right.
I read every one of them, and they were redefining who would qualify under the existing program we have. Mm-hmm. So they're not creating a new program. They're just creating a new class of people that's going to qualify for the program.
Right.
Which would include those that are not qualified on the federal program nor in Washington State previously.
Got it.
They're gonna open up the doors a little more to include those. And again, once these people aren't stupid coming across, they know where best to go in this country to get the most good things.
Yeah, wouldn't you? If you were trying to run out of a country that's dangerous or hostile or whatever, and you're like, hey, if I go over there, they're being smart. I don't blame them. The people coming over, I don't want them to come here, but I don't blame them.
You can't blame them.
Yeah.
They're well. The good and decent ones you can't blame. The sex traffickers, the drug cartels, we can blame.
Sorry, that went without saying. Yeah.
We can blame them. But there are some good people in this. These 20 million that have come across. Maybe there's a few that are, you and I would say, we'd feel sorry for them and we're glad you're here.
And you can't tell the difference. That's the problem. That's the big problem. Right, yeah.
The gate's wide open. They're flying them in from other countries. So there's no checks and balances whatsoever. They're just coming here. In Washington State, my Republican opponent, sponsors a bill. Doesn't just vote for it. He sponsors it. Gets it passed to give housing, cash assistance, food, education, job training, you name it, medical, insurance. Let's just give it to these people.
So now...
And we have to pay for it.
If I pretend I'm undocumented...
It might be a good strategy in Washington State.
If it's I'm undocumented and you walk in and you're like, I need help, here's my mustache, I'm from some third world country somewhere. If the definition is I don't have any documents, can I just make anything up and... I don't have any documents. Can I have some? Right?
It would not surprise me one bit if there are people that are like, listen, you turned me down last month, and I'm a resident here,
right?
A legal resident. Maybe I'm here on a student visa or a work visa.
I'll just pretend
I'll just not give you those documents next time, and maybe I'll qualify because you're going to give it to all these other people that are undocumented.
Yeah.
That would not be a bad strategy if,
We're not recommending that, but I do wonder about that sometimes.
But this is what they're doing to our system.
Yeah.
And that's when I say it's broke, in my opinion, it's broke and getting broker is what they're doing. I don't know what their end game is. Open borders, just nothing good can come from what they're trying to do right now. I can't imagine anything good coming of this. It would be interesting to have them sit down and say, what's your end game? When are you happy that everyone's being treated the way you want them to be treated? Right. Everyone's here that you want to come here. How do we feed them? How do we house them? Our infrastructure, our hospitals, our schools, how are we going to grow? How are we going to afford to grow like that if you just open the borders and let hundreds of millions of people come into this country? There's no end game.
We're getting a little sidetracked on one specific issue here.
Sorry.
No. I'm participating in the distraction. So
to answer your question, that's something that would differentiate myself from my opponent. Not only would I not ever sponsor a bill like that, I'm a no.
Yeah.
Now, why would he sponsor a bill like that? Let me get into some deep politics here for just a second.
Yeah, let's do it.
He brags all day long. I went down there my first term down there, and I got 5 bills passed. I've only got one myself. He said, I got 5 bills passed. And then he lists 4 of them on these flyers. So in my letter,
he leaves out the one that you just,
In my letter, I help him educate voters on that 5th bill. Oh, he left one out obviously by mistake, but here's what it does.
Mm-hmm.
So a voter looking at him and I, if they got his flyers and my letter, they're going to go, they can verify everything on mine. I put links, I put QR codes on it.
Right.
They can verify everything I say in this letter and the data. I believe they're going to vote for me. I believe they did, and that's why I made it through the primary with that onslaught that I just went through. Otherwise, I don't know many people that can make it through even a primary with $500,000 of negative ads, and you can't respond.
Right.
You can barely respond.
What about, tell me about what's on your legislative agenda? You get in, what sort of legislation would you be sponsoring?
The first thing I'm going to do is redraft some of the legislation I've had in the past. That's the first thing.
Let's hear about
it.
Give me some examples.
I had 4 pieces of legislation that I drafted dealing with election integrity issues.
Okay.
I'll just
rattle them off real quick.
Put QR codes on the ballots.
Okay.
So that an individual can track their own ballot.
Mm-hmm.
And the images, the machines take an image of it, and you can see if that was your ballot or not, or if someone else got a ballot. Okay. QR codes on ballots. I would require voters that want to be on the voter registration rolls to follow the same steps as they would if they got an enhanced driver's license.
Okay.
Which, to get a regular license, you don't have to show your status in this country.
Nothing.
To get an enhanced driver's license, we're being forced by the feds, by the way, because they know our law in Washington State is so laxed, the feds don't know who's traveling.
Right.
They want to know you're an American citizen, you're not a terrorist, and blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy. You bring your birth certificate in. It's an easy process, but it's a process. Another bill I had on that issue, election integrity, was to require voters on the registration rolls to follow the same steps as getting an enhanced driver's license to remain on the voter registration rolls. And those that won't or don't do it, there'll be an appeal process, like I lost my birth certificate, whatever.
Right.
There'll be all that. There'll be financial help because it costs, I think, $80 to do the enhanced driver's license. Can't afford it, we'll pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We'll make it as easy as possible, but that will clean up our voter registration rolls. So these are top priorities. I wrote a bill that takes the surplus money that the 4 years I was in, we had surplus, billions of dollars every year. I took that surplus money and I eliminated the state property tax, which is about 1/3 of your property tax. There's a state level, a county level, and then the local levies that we all vote on.
Right.
Those 3, basically 1/3 of your taxes each. This would eliminate the state portion of it, which at the time was $3.7 billion, and cut people's property taxes by 1/3.
By 1/3.
Because we have a housing affordability problem. We hear that from both sides of the aisles all the time. Mm-hmm. This would help that.
And the money was there. It was like the money's literally sitting on the table.
I paid for it with the surplus money. I
Yeah.
didn't cut programs. I didn't raise taxes. I said use the surplus money. Now, under our Constitution, the only way the state can tax our property is if they use that money for education.
Surplus isn't well, I guess they could say we'll get used for education later. Right.
So I also say, well, let's fund education first. I'm not just asking to take $3.7 billion away from education. Mm-hmm. We're going to pay for it with the surplus money. But if next year we don't have a surplus, then education's hurting. So I say pay for education first. We've got a $70 billion budget. Pay them first, so they're never threatened to lose any kind of funding.
Well, and then this turns into a DNR question. Isn't the whole forest in Washington State supposed to be there in trust to pay for education? Like
to help pay for it, yes.
Yes, that's
our education. It's about 50% of our budget.
Right, I've seen that.
Yeah, and the forest alone wouldn't pay for it all. So,
but would it pay for $3.7 billion if it fell short the next round?
I'm
not saying it would pay for it all.
It might. Yeah. I don't know the answer to that
okay.
question, honestly. But it definitely would help, and we could utilize those resources a lot better than we are, and we're not doing it.
Well, or I mean, now I'm sitting here thinking of ideas, right? Well, like
you're asking me some of my priorities.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard for me not to respond. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
But okay, there's 3.7 sitting on the table. How about we just give it back this year? And if there's not a surplus next year, then okay. If there is a surplus this year, then or next year, then we can give that back too. Like take it on a year by year thing.
My bill is a starting point for a conversation.
Here we go. Yeah.
So that was my idea. Let's pay for it, the surplus. I don't have, as the bill makes its way through committee and the House floor and voting and debates, there's the amendment process.
Sure.
We could do whatever we felt necessary. I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy on this earth, and you can't come up with a halfway decent idea to make my idea better. That's the process. That's how it's supposed to work. So that process would take place, and if I can think of something, or if someone thought of something that can make it even better, by all means, let's do it. Mine is a starting piece. So property tax reduction, traffic congestion, at least on the west side, in the 39th, the I-5 corridor, the I-405, Highway 9, Highway 2, 522. What a mess.
They're a blast.
What a mess.
I have so much fun on those highways.
Yeah. And so I was on the Transportation Committee, and transportation, congestion relief, adding lane capacity, the trestle's a mess. They're talking about fixing it and doing this, and maybe 10 years. It never, ever would even help solve the problem, and it costs us a couple more billion. I'm like, build a second trestle.
That's great.
Build a second one. Or tear this one down, build it again, and make it a double-decker or something. Well, then it's going to slam traffic into the freeway, and it'll back up and build more lane capacity on the freeway. They won't do it. It's against their political religion, if you will. They don't want to build lane capacity, so that's a priority of mine. That's going to benefit Democrats, Republicans, Independents, Libertarians. If we can clear up our traffic congestion, lower property taxes, I didn't get into public safety, keep our streets safe. That's not a Republican ideal. That's an American ideal, safe communities. If you're breaking the law and you're a repeat offender, you're going to jail. If you're hooked on fentanyl, drugs, and you're having a hard time, mental health, get treatment or go to jail. All right, we want to help you as a society. These are my priorities. My priority, if Robert had a magic wand and I could just fix everything, Democrat voters, my constituents, would benefit greatly. I'm not asking for things that would offend Democrats. When you look down my placard I have when I'm handing out my literature, and this lady looked at me, and this happened more than once. She goes, "I'm sorry, you're a Republican. I vote Democrat." I go, "Will you do me a favor? Just tell me where you and I differ on these issues." And there was like 9 or 10 of them. And she goes through them, and she goes, "Well, none of them." She goes, "Robert, I've never voted for a Republican, and I'm voting for you." That's who I am.
Well, maybe you should have a message here to Democrats as well as Republicans today.
If they could make it through the onslaught of negative ads, if they can make it through that, sit down, talk to me, listen to this interview. When I say I'm a real Republican, let me explain that a little bit. Because the hardest fights I have in politics are with some Republicans. We have a political divide in our party. Some think it's okay to write Democrat bills and pass them. They call that working across the aisle. I say you just violated our rights. You're taking our money and giving it to somebody else. And that somebody else is someone that I don't think that Democrats would want these sex traffickers and drug cartel members having, and the terrorists coming over. You want to take a Democrat family's money and give it to these people that are going to harm their children and their neighborhoods? Nobody on the street agrees with it. They will agree with me. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be screening these people. But my Republican opponent is going to sponsor a bill like that. If I could get that message out, if I had $500,000, is there anyone out there with $500,000? I would be able to get this message out a lot better than I have been in the past.
Well, let's talk about that message. So in terms of a path to victory here.
Yeah.
Right? Because technically the legislative agenda doesn't matter if there's no path to victory.
That's right.
Right? So do you want to tell me a little bit about your path to victory?
Yeah.
Or your plan to path to victory?
And I have the plan, and the path costs money. So what I want to do and what will actually happen will depend on how much money I'm able to raise. What we just spoke about, getting this message out to voters, is my plan. I have a 28,000 person list, and to put this into perspective, we just had roughly 40,000 people vote in the primary in the 39th.
Okay,
that's going to go to roughly 60, 70, 80,000.
Depending on how much participation there is. Yeah.
So out of the, say 70,000, well, roughly half are going to be leaning left. Somewhere in the middle, and the independents that just, maybe base it on the person or their priorities or something, and Republicans. 28,000 people out of the 70,000 is almost half of all voters. It's huge. Mm-hmm. It's huge. I wish I could send it to everybody, but that's going to double the cost and the man hours of being able to produce this stuff. Mm-hmm. So my strategy is to get on the air, do things like this, and be able to share this with as many people that will share it, to actually reach out and touch a voter with this information I'm going to share with them. Here's the difference between candidate A and candidate B, myself and my opponent. You decide. You're the voter. You make a decision.
So I noticed you've brought, this looks like some of the smear material against you, or is this some of the, did you want to spend some time addressing that, or would you rather focus on, or I mean, we do both, or would you rather focus on, here's what I plan on putting in the information that I want to send out to everybody? Because it sounds to me, your opinion is that if people were just a little bit more educated on the situation surrounding you, you would get a lot more support. And you're kind of stuck behind this veil of that.
I've often referred
smear material that I'm looking at on the table.
Yes. I've often referred to this game. It's not a game, politics, getting elected, as a rich person's game. Mm-hmm. Trump got a lot of money. He can self-fund if he wanted, but he's also raising a lot of money. A person like me, that's just your average guy. I'm not broke. I'm not poor. I'm middle class, but I can't afford to put tens of thousands of dollars into my own campaign. Can't afford it. That's where I need help to get my message out. I'll give you an example. I don't know how well this is gonna.
Yeah, we're not gonna see it on the screen, but I'm sure.
Go ahead. Here's who they refer to as basically a terrorist.
Okay, I'm just gonna read this.
Go ahead.
So this is from the Sam Lowe campaign. It says, "This is attention Democrats. If your goal is to defeat far-right MAGA candidates, Sam Lowe is a better alternative," which is a quote from the Progressive Voters Guide. And on the back here, it says, "There is no place for political extremism in the 39th District." It's got a bunch of faces here.
That's a father and two sons.
Uh-huh.
And one of those sons, the younger one, is Zephaniah, I forget his last name.
Borinak.
And he was the Democrat in this race, in the primary.
Okay.
There was an independent lady, Catherine something or other, Lewandowski. Uh-huh. And Zeph was a Democrat. Lowe and myself were the two Republicans.
Wait, so these people that they're, and I'm sorry you guys can't really see this, but these people that are being posted here as political extremists, these three are political extremists. You're saying one of these ran as a Democratic candidate?
So what is going on in this brochure? I'll explain it best I can. The father and two sons, roughly 10 years ago, were arrested. Now I'm going to clarify the story because that is very misleading. If that's all you knew, you'd be like, oh my goodness, arrested for explosives. So that was 10 years ago, 7 years prior to that. So Zeph, I know this because I ended up meeting with him after the election. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
He explained to me exactly what was going on. When he was 13, him and his dad and brother, I think they were out shooting. They were out in nature. They come across people who had been shooting and left all their spent ammunition littered around. Mm-hmm. They cleaned it up, threw it in a bag, and went about their business, went home. Bag went in a closet for 7 years.
Of spent ammunition.
Spent ammunition.
The brass shells and
shells.
Plastic.
And among those were bullets, not the full bullet, not the ammunition, but the tip, the bullet.
Yeah, the lead. The copper or whatever.
Which there were like 6 or 7 tracer bullets. Legal in California. But they need to be registered when you buy them. You have to fill out a form or something.
So those are the explosives.
They were part of the explosives.
Okay.
Right? Shoved in a bag when he was 13. Okay, that's a Democrat candidate. He was 13 when that happened. 7 years later, the older brother was out shooting, and he had in his possession tannerite, which is an explosive used by gun enthusiasts.
To be like, boom, boom, wasn't that fun? Right? Yeah.
I don't use it. I would. Uh-huh. It's a waste of money if you ask me, but anyway.
It's like fireworks. Waste of money, but it's kind of fun.
On steroids. Now, tannerite I've never bought it. This is what I've learned. When you buy it, perfectly legal. I think you have to fill something out with that too, a form. But it's not in its active form yet. When you get on site, when you go out to wherever you're going to explode this stuff, you mix it with its second part, if you will. I've never done it, so I'm hoping I'm explaining that correctly. Well, they had mixed it, and they were shooting. Things were exploding, and they didn't use it all. So he threw his guns and everything in the back of his trunk, and he's heading home.
So he has an active explosive in his
He does.
Which was, I mean, from a safety perspective, that wasn't very smart. But
right.
okay, yeah.
Right. But that's his older brother. And we're actually...
And is that one of the three guys?
It's one of the three.
Okay, yeah.
But the one running for office is the younger brother.
Okay.
He hasn't done any of this. So he gets pulled over, routine traffic stop, and during that stop, the officer asks the older brother, "Do you mind if I take a look around, your vehicle?" He's like, "No, I don't have anything to hide." He didn't understand the law.
He didn't realize he had explosives in his car.
He did. He didn't realize it was illegal, is my understanding. So the officer finds it, arrests him. They get a search warrant for the house.
And they find the bullets.
And they find the tracers that were put there 7 years ago in a bag when they cleaned up litter, basically. So the father and both sons all get arrested for explosives. They do an investigation, and all charges were dropped from Zephaniah. There's nothing there. The prosecutor's like,
"Get out of here.
He's never been in trouble. We're not prosecuting this."
Yeah.
Drops all the charges. But you wouldn't know it from the flyers we're getting. And then they link me.
Well, and then let me just read this. So, as someone not knowing anything that's going on here, and we'll try to figure out a link so you can see this up close. It says, "There's no place for political extremism in the 39th District. Don't be fooled by Zephaniah Boronak." I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, which is the story that you just said. Zephaniah Boronak, who is running for Washington State Representative to represent the 39th District, Position 1 as an alleged Democrat, has his fair share of legal trouble over the years, from explosive charges. To your point, it's just a charge. It wasn't a conviction.
You can
to a pattern of sexual misconduct. That's from the Linwood Times.
You can take a tracer bullet, and it's perfectly legal. If you had a pile of them and you took the stuff that makes the trace and piled it all up or put it in a container, you could make a good fireworks, 4th of July fireworks, I guess. And it's an explosive, but it's not like C4, like where you're going to blow up an FBI building or something. They make it sound like this is a very bad thing. The prosecutors said, "I'm dropping it.
Right.
There's nothing here."
Well, and then here's the jump. Here's a picture of you looking scary in black and white, right? Arms crossed. Boronak is also linked to a fellow opponent and former Representative Robert Sutherland, a Republican running for the same position. What does that mean?
And let me describe.
What does that mean?
Let me just.
You linked? Is there a link stuck to you or something? Like, what does that mean?
Right. I get a call from Linwood Times. Actually, it was a text, and we're going back and forth. And he's like, "We have information that ties you to Zeph." And I go, "Okay, that's what? We're in the same room?" I travel. I meet tens of thousands of people. What do you got?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were at this meeting 2 years ago, and you both signed this particular document. And it's at a church, and if I recall correctly, we won't forget about God in our decisions, if we get elected or something like that. Right. We signed it. Everyone's tons of people signed it. So again, I called for like a luncheon with Zeph after the election. I'm going over this with him to get his side because this is new information to me. Zeph, do you know me? Did we meet 2 years ago? Do you know me at all? He says, no. I go, well, Linwood Times is saying that we were at the same meeting 2 years ago. He goes, oh, I remember that meeting, that document we signed. He goes, I remember that. He says, I wasn't at that meeting. He goes, I missed the meeting. I forget why. He says, so I called the pastor up, and the next day I went there and signed it.
So you weren't even in the same room?
We weren't even in the same room. Okay. That's the link between me and the guy they're trying to make look like a terrorist. Where he was...
Because he cleaned up some bullets once upon a time. And
when he was 13.
And was shooting.
And he wouldn't... I can't imagine. At 13, you wouldn't even know what a tracer bullet is. And again, tracer bullets are legal. So they're cleaning up an area. They they put it away in the house, and it's just sitting there for 7 years. Because of the older brother and his infraction with the law. By the way, the older brother was charged because he did violate laws, but he to my understanding, he never did jail time. He was on probation, first offense type of thing, and don't do that again, right? So if you listen to Democrats and their negative ads, and that's not the only one. I mean, here's a nice picture of him, too.
I wanted to read the fine print. Okay. I think this might be the best part. I just shifted my eyes a little bit lower. No candidate authorized this ad. Picture of Sam Lowe on the front. It doesn't say Sam Lowe authorized this ad. Paid for by the Jackson Legacy Fund with such and such address. Top 5 contributors: UA Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Political Issues Fund, Northwest Regional Organization Coalition PAC. The Painters and Allied Trades Political Action Together Legislative Educational Committee. Wow, how many words can I throw on that?
These are left.
Washington Association of Realtors Political Affairs Council. And I bet 90% of the people who are members of these organizations have no idea where their money's going, where they're paying dues and stuff like this.
People that donate to those PACs and special interest groups, they're left-leaning, and they're hoping they don't care what you do with the money as long as it helps get left-leaning candidates elected.
Right. So in theory, Sam Lowe had nothing to do with this. I said it there. I said it there. But the way they have this set up, that he has access to all this money that doesn't even have to be donated to him because it's in the PAC, and they just made this independently.
They can spend millions of dollars.
Right? They just made this independently. Oh, that's impressive. Although, I mean, to whoever's getting this and not looking at it with a critical mind, this is so dumb. Like, Bornak is also linked to opponent and former Representative Robert Sutherland.
No, we weren't. We're not.
Whether you aren't or not, like, what does that mean? Linked what? Are they linked at the hip, or what? So anyway, I got enough about that,
and I will explain that for your viewers. The Democrat strategy in this race, the primary that just ended, they looked at Zeph, and they had never heard of him before. Mm-hmm. He's new in the game. I've heard some other reports in press. I read some things, and what he's saying is like, this is my first race. I was thinking Joe. I run as a Republican. He ran as a Democrat. He made the decision for whatever reason. He's new in the political game. The left Democrats don't know who he is. So they didn't want him to spoil or to split votes with Sam Lowe. Sam Lowe's doing their bidding down in Olympia. Mm-hmm. They're like, you know what? If Zeph makes it through, if it's Sutherland and Zeph, then I'm most likely to make it through. So they pulled the rug out from one of their own.
Or even if Zeph makes it through, it sounds better than. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah. They made a conscious decision not to support a Democrat candidate, and to put their full weight behind Sam Lowe, the what I would call the fake Republican, and that's why they're doing this to one of their own, a Democrat. And then they're linking me to it, trying to hurt me.
Yeah. But what's the link? Tell me what the link is. Not you. The flyer.
Yeah. He's linked.
You already told me. Okay.
Apparently, we signed the same document 2 years ago.
Okay, that's you might as well be sleeping together at that point.
Yep. That's if you were to, Dylan, if you ran off to office and you ran as whatever candidate, they would say you and I were linked.
Oh, of course, because I had a conversation with you.
We're not friends. We don't hang out. We don't drink together. We're professional in what we're doing. You're interviewing me.
Right.
Are we linked, politically or religiously or any other way? No, we're not. Yes, with you, I'd say yes. I've met him twice or 2 or 3 times. With Zeph, I don't know who he is. And maybe we were.
So we have a stronger link right now,
much stronger
than you have with
Zeph. Yeah. I don't consider that a link. We signed the same document.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous on its face. Yeah.
If I go to a particular church and someone's in there and we both donate money into the coffer, there's a link. I don't consider that a link. Yeah. But in politics,
link.
Politics, they say link, trying to make.
Did you want to bring up the next one?
Well, it's the same topic, I guess. But here's a lovely picture of him. The guy. Yeah. When I met him when he's running for office, clean cut, decent, married.
Even in his mugshot, he actually looks he looks clean cut and I know they got the mugshot thing going on here, but he actually looks pretty good in this mugshot too.
Keep in mind when they get a mugshot. They kick your door down 6 o'clock in the morning. They come in and they wrap you up, take you to jail, and they take a mugshot. Mm-hmm. So he was probably drug out of bed there. He's a clean-cut, decent guy by my standards, from what I can tell of him. Wife, he's got, I think, a young daughter. And I was asking about his political views and, why did he decide to run and all that stuff. I liked the guy. So I get, now there's a link.
I like him based on what you're telling me.
Because I just met him. Now there is a link. I was interested in getting some of the stories on this because I'm going in general, and I want to know what's going on. You're linking me to what you're trying to make this guy look out to be a terrorist, and you're trying to link me to him. So they're going to continue more
Arrested
of this.
For unlawful possession of explosives after a bunker full of weapons was found on his family's property.
A bunker.
He was charged with. Like you were saying before we walked into this room, right? Is that if you're charged, because it's supposed to be you're convicted. That's the whole concept of a court system, right? You're innocent until proven guilty. Is that they, for whatever reason in the public consciousness, if you're charged with something, you're guilty. Yeah,
that's how they try to make it look.
Yeah, exactly.
So he was wrapped up with he was at his father's house. There was explosives. Here I go. There were tracer bullets, a handful of them, 6 or 8 or whatever, in a closet, in a bag, buried for 7 years. I'm sure they forgot about him. And it's the dad that's getting arrested, but now at that time, Zeph had gone from 13 to 20 years old. He's an adult. So he gets wrapped up in this. Mm-hmm. And again, they dropped all charges.
Well, and then, another thing about what's interesting about explosives, I mean, we already talked about fireworks. I could have some firecrackers.
That's right.
I mean, firecrackers are legal or whatever, but, I mean, those are explosives. Yeah. Firecrackers are explosives. And then, I mean, I remember hearing stories from my great uncle who lived on, grew up on a farm. He got his blasting license where he was allowed to get explosives so he could blow up stumps.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's a purpose for explosives. It doesn't automatically mean you're, going to do terrorism with them. Yeah.
You want to do this one?
Sure.
So Sutherland misses 29 votes. Travel. Those are the accusations against me in a negative ed.
So you missed 29 votes during a 60-day session. You traveled out of state at yeah. Okay, so this is something I do want you to address this. So this is here's a picture of Robert Sutherland, and here's all the negative things that you did supposedly, right? So
as a legislator, yeah.
One of the big things that, and it does happen all the time, that politicians are accused of is putting their personal expenses on their, government debit cards or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about how you traveled out of state at taxpayer expense to attend political rallies.
I did not.
Okay. Well, is it even a specific thing they're alluding to, or is it just entirely made up?
It's a half-truth with stuff made up.
Okay, let's hear it.
I have traveled out of state, but not on taxpayer money. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to back this up. As a legislator, we have a budget of $9,000 a year for travel expenses, to attend meetings, conventions, whatever that can help us as a legislator. We come back home, we might write legislation based on what we've learned. Mm-hmm. We have a $9,000 a year budget. I was there 4 years. That's $36,000. And in 4 years, I expensed one trip, and it was $1,400. I gave all the rest back to taxpayers. Okay, let's put that in perspective. Mm-hmm. So the 2 trips I went to were Arizona to see how they handle a recount of an election, because we have a lot of people in my district wanting to.
That's what they called the rally.
Not that one.
Okay,
it's the second one they'll call the rally. So I went to Arizona to learn about recounts of elections on my time, on my dime, paid for everything. Mm-hmm. Never expensed it. I could have. It's perfectly legit to expense that. I didn't. I traveled to South Dakota. It's my trip number 2, and I've only done 2 trips in 4 years. South Dakota, there was a cyber symposium for elected officials across the country and their staff to show up dealing with election integrity issues. What are some of the vulnerabilities? What are some of the potential?
Cybersecurity is such a huge deal. Everything's getting hacked all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
This was on cybersecurity having to do with election processes and tabulation machines, and here's some of the machines. It was a 3-day convention. A lot of data, a lot of experts coming in. From that, by the way, I went on my own time, paid for the entire thing out of my own pocket. They're calling that a rally.
So which one did you expense? You said you expensed a $1,400 trip.
But I paid for it out of my own pocket. I met 2 other legislators there, and we were just discussing things, and among them that they had expensed this particular symposium. I go, yeah, it's perfectly legit. I went home and wrote 4 bills on election integrity based on everything I learned.
Yeah.
I call up the House attorney. So 2 trips, I paid for everything. Come back home, I call the House attorney. I go, listen, his name's Ohad. Here's the 2 trips I went on. Are these expensible? Can I reimburse myself for them? And we discussed them a little bit. And he goes, yeah, absolutely. I did one of them.
Oh, and then it shows up. Okay.
And it's that they're saying I used taxpayer money to go to a rally. It was a cyber symposium, perfectly legitimate. They make it sound like I used taxpayer money illegally or improperly. No, I paid for it out of my own pocket and had the House reimburse me for one of the 2 trips, both of which were legitimately expensible, if you will.
Sure. Failed to pass a single piece of legislation. I thought you got one.
You want to see it? I have it.
Later, not right now.
Yeah.
But so you did pass legislation, and then it might be.
And it was across the aisle. So Roger Goodman, chairman of the Public Safety Committee, and I was on the Public Safety Committee. He's a good guy. He's left-leaning. We don't always agree, but he's an honest, fair man. I like him. I don't remember the bill number. I do have it right here with me if we needed to prove it or something. But him and I were the sponsors of that bill. It was a pro-law enforcement bill. It untied law enforcement's hands. If they get a call that someone's stealing stuff from a store and they show up and a person comes out with a handful of goods and the police says, halt, I need to talk to you, and they start running. Current law was the officer couldn't even pursue that person. They still can't pursue a car.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, the initiative changed that, right?
If it's voted in on the ballot, it's not law yet. So that's working its way through to help that. But this was a pro-law enforcement bill that would allow an officer to make a judgment call. You look like the guy that's breaking the law. I need you to not flee. If you flee, I can use force to stop you. Mm-hmm. I can tackle you. Whatever. That's the bill I passed. They say I have no bills passed. I don't have many bills passed because to get bills passed in Olympia,
you're the minority.
That's right.
Party, yeah.
They have to want you to pass a bill. This one happened to be a bipartisan. I was working with Roger Goodman, but that's a bill I sponsored. So to say I've passed nothing is misleading at best or a lie.
Well, and then maybe I don't want you to pass a bunch of bills. Maybe I just want you in there blocking them. Right? There's more to the story than just passing bills, right?
People I talk to say all the time, there's too many bills being passed anyway. Go down there and fight the bad stuff, which is what I do. Mm-hmm. I still do my job and write good bills. If I got my way, property taxes would go down by 1/3, and they'd be paid for. We'd have less traffic congestion. We discussed these. Our elections would start, the processes would start getting better. If the bills I write and submit would get the proper support by the people in Olympia, we have a better state, a much better state. It's the politics down there that prevent the bills I write from getting passed.
Tell me about the missed 29 votes during the 60-day session.
Yeah. I was down there 4 years. I don't believe I missed a single vote in the first 2. Then we get into COVID. Now I'm out in Olympia. I'm working from home with my own internet. I don't know exactly if they're counting committee, just floor votes or committee votes as well. I don't know. Let's just assume it's floor votes. Like everything comes out of committee and now we're on the House floor voting them into law or not.
Yeah.
Let's just count those. We do from 2,000 to 4,000 bills a year, a session. So let's say 10,000 in 4 years. 10,000 bills on the House floor when I'm a legislator.
So this is 0.29%.
I don't know if there's a legislator down there. If I got COVID, you don't want me on the House floor. Right? And if I'm sick, some people got really sick and they're bedridden. We do about roughly, on average, 200 bills a day on the House floor. 200. If you miss one day of work in 4 years because you were sick, a family member died, you got in a car accident, an emergency, or if you miss one day of work during House floor time, you'd be missing about 200 bills a day. Mm-hmm. In 4 years, I missed 29 votes. So, why did I miss them?
Well, hold on. Before you answer, I just want to put it in perspective. Yeah. So you're saying if we lined up all the legislatures in that session, and said, okay, let's have a chart of, of how many you've missed, do you think you'd be the least missed? Or close to it?
I would be close to. I don't know about the least. I never missed a day. I never called in sick.
This is actually a bragging point, is what you're saying.
It almost is.
This is a bragging point, and they're turning it around.
Right.
Okay. So why did you miss the 29?
The example, or not the example, the situation we discussed earlier, where I'm down in Olympia. Okay, so COVID rules. First of all, I couldn't go down there the first year. Second year, same thing, and the rules started relaxing a little bit. Now you could make an appointment to go down there, give them a week's notice, because they got to sit you 6 feet apart and put name tags. Mm-hmm. So I had given my notice. I was going to go down there. This is my 4th session. We're at the end of the session. I'm like, I'm going to go do one more day on the house floor. Just out of, because I hadn't been there in 2 years, right? I've been working from home. They forced me. So the night before I'm to travel there, they work us till after midnight. And I have a decision to make. Drive down there tired, which I've got a family history. My dad passed away falling asleep driving, and I've struggled with that. So I'm not going to drive down there at 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. And then that would be the day, of course. They're going to work us for another 24 hours. That happened to me one time. Mm-hmm. The day I got the least amount of sleep is when they worked us till 6 a.m. So I don't go down there Thursday night like I was planning to. I go to bed. I tried to get 4, 5, 6 hours of sleep. So now I'm driving down there. I'm in Everett commute traffic. I'm in Seattle commute traffic.
Tacoma. Olympia,
not J-Lub, JBLM. Took me hours to get there. I'm missing votes. I get there and I set up my office because I haven't been there in 2 years. I had to bring all my equipment. I'm setting my office up. I had IT problems, so I called IT. They came. They helped me. It took an hour or so to get my system up, my computers, and now I'm voting. I'm not allowed on the House floor. I'm in my office alone, and we're debating. I'm on a Zoom, and we're voting for bills and stuff. I get a knock on the door. Security shows up. Said, Rep. Sutherland, we're sorry. You're not on the approved list of individuals that can be in the J-Law building. Can you please relocate to the legislative building? We have a conference room there for people like you, right? I go, absolutely. During floor debate, during voting, I had to wrap up my computers at their request or get arrested, haul them over there, set them up, and begin voting again. That's the 29 votes.
Yeah, like I said, I think this is more of a bragging point than something to drag somebody over. And then I never realized this until I started talking to state legislators, legislators, there we go, excuse me, that sometimes you do like 24-hour sessions. Like when they work you, it's like with whips.
They wear you down so you don't want to spend a lot of time on a bad bill. So I typically would show up at my office about 8, get up around 6:30 or so, shower, get ready, drive there, get to my office at 8 o'clock, find out what's going on with my legislative assistant, any fires that need to be put out. 9 o'clock, we have our caucus, so we go to the Ledge building. We have a caucus where all the Republicans gather together, all the Democrats gather together in a different room. And we start going over the bills that we're going to start voting on at 10 o'clock when we start the floor action. Mm-hmm. So the night, I think that was a Monday, because that was one of those days, instead of driving back to Olympia on Sunday, I said, I'm going to sleep home, get a good night's sleep. I'm going to go down there in the morning, maybe get to my office right before caucus. I did that. I did 3 hours of commute, traffic. That was the day they worked it. We started at 10 o'clock on the House floor, but I was up at 4:30, 5 o'clock to get ready to drive down there. So now we start at 10 o'clock. We went till 6 o'clock. It was 5:45 a.m. the next morning.
So almost 24 hours.
I was up more than 24 hours. The floor action was from 10 till, what is that, like 18 hours or something? Mm-hmm. But you count the caucus time, your office time, work time. It was from me. It was 8 till 6, so 22 hours. Mm-hmm. Throw in the commute and getting ready and all that. Yeah. But so that has happened to me, and that is miserable. But they do that to you to wear you down. That is why I didn't drive Thursday night. Actually, it's early Friday morning, because my luck, that would be yet another day they want to work you for 18, 20 hours. Right. 22 hours. Which is very unhealthy. And driving, it's very dangerous for me and anyone around me. Driving drunk or driving tired. They say driving tired is worse than driving drunk.
Yeah, because I guess when you're drunk, you're still alert a little bit, right? When you're asleep.
When your head drops and you're sleeping.
There's nothing, yeah.
And just to drive that point home, fortunately, I was going very slowly. I pulled off a main road to my neighborhood. It's a gated community, so there's like a drive going up to the gate. I pulled off the main road, turned left into this drive, and boom, I'm asleep.
Yeah.
There's a railing on the side, and I have a vehicle, my GMC Sierra. It's a truck. It has a crash warning system. The seat vibrates, you know. And again, I was doing 5 or 10 miles an hour. I had just stopped almost to turn, and I had just turned. My head went down, and then my seat vibrates. I look up, and I'm going right for the railing, and I was able to miss it.
Yeah.
Okay. That was the first time in my life where I fell asleep. I've driven tired, and it's tough. My dad did it. He died, and I just fell asleep. That was
you can't. That's
a wake-up call for me. Mm-hmm. Maybe as I get a little older, it's going to get harder and harder to drive tired. Because they work us hard. Get off the floor at 6 o'clock in the morning. I got to drive back to my apartment now, 15-minute drive. Mm-hmm. That's not a long drive, but I'm on the road exhausted. That's worse than driving drunk, studies say. And so, why didn't you drive, 2 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning because?
Then I wouldn't have voted on any bills because it would have been dead.
Yes. Or I could kill an innocent someone else, right?
Do you want to hand me the rest of those? We don't have to go through them like we just did. I just want to show them all.
I'm part of the problem, apparently.
Yeah, you're part of the problem. I mean, just to run home, like, here's the stuff. Oh, wait, this is one just promoting Sam Lowe.
Some of these are just,
right there, So,
by the way, it's taken my top priorities: safe neighborhoods, pro-police, bills, crumbling roads, and our traffic, our infrastructure. He's saying that he's the only responsible Republican. He's taken all my talking points, and they're making flyers that he's me. Mm-hmm. But he's turning me into someone I'm not. That's what they're doing. Here's a whole paper.
What paper is this? This is just literally a paper.
That's a Sam Lowe paper. Nothing, all 4 or 8 pages of Sam Lowe.
Yes, because when you dress up like a baseball guy, you know that's a guy worth voting for. With a dog and a baseball, you don't even need to know anything else.
No.
Yeah.
This all costs a lot of money, by the way.
Of course it does. This is nice paper.
This is a rich person's game. Or if you're not rich, then you rely on special interest groups and PACs to come in and save the day for you.
Well, I mean, at least I don't see anything trashing you in this one. This is just a pro Sam Lowe.
Yeah. About half the flyers are just pro Sam Lowe. The other half are attacking me.
Yeah.
And some of those came from Sam Lowe. 6 or 8 of them here. I think 2 or 3 were from Sam Lowe's campaign. And then the others were from special interest group PACs and, left-leaning unions and things like that want to get a left-leaning Republican in there.
So this is all defense we've been talking about so far.
Yeah.
Would you like to take an opportunity to go a little offense while we're sitting here?
Sure.
You want to tell me about Sam Lowe?
I was hesitating going where your audience wants me to go.
Well, hold on. Let me just open with this. This is just a fact. I'm not going to give an opinion on it.
Right.
Sam Lowe was censured by his LD.
That's correct. Not once, but twice.
Oh, I didn't know it was twice.
Yeah.
And Sam, is he still the county councilman?
Yes.
Okay, so he was county councilman before, and he runs for the state rep, and apparently he's doing both at the same time. I didn't know that was a thing that you could do. And
there should be an RCW to prevent something like this.
You would think, but there's not. So I mean, this is kind of water under the bridge, right? So you had the position, the state rep position.
Yes.
He's a Republican county councilman saying, "I want to be the state rep," and the whole Republican LD is going, "We got a Republican state rep, and we like him.
We like him a lot.
What are you doing, right?" And he got censured apparently twice. I wasn't aware of the second one, and just was able to bulldoze through it anyway, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So we can spend an hour on the Olympia scheme to get me out, but he was part of it. He was the one that was approached and asked, "Hey, we're going to redraw the lines because every 10 years they redistrict. We're going to draw Sutherland's half of his district out, where I have a solid base. We're going to put him in your district, basically, Lake Stevens and more of Snohomish and Marysville, and we'd like you to run against him." So they've already weakened me by
changing the lines.
Half of my voters have never heard of me now. Mm-hmm. So it weakens you politically. I don't have that name recognition, which I've had before. At least half of it is gone. So that was the plot. And then they have him, they talk him into running. I don't know what they promised him to do it. He got 5 bills passed. One was terrible. I suspect to get your 4 minor bills passed, you've got to pass one of ours. Mm-hmm. And we'll do it bipartisan. That's how Olympia works. But so he challenges me, and the 39th Legislative District Republican Party invites him and I and others in. It's not a candidate debate, but it's like, hey, we'd like to talk. Let's see if we can work this out. He and a couple of his people show up. I show up. And the precinct committee officers, the PCOs, are asking questions like, why Sutherland? Why are you targeting him and not Eslick, for instance? Both are Republicans in the district. Sam was saying, well, I just think the voters here deserve a choice because they didn't vote him in 2 years ago or 4 years ago. They deserve a choice. Let's give them a choice. So I'm going to be the choice. That's the rationale he was using. Mm-hmm. Well, why Sutherland and why not Eslick? Well, so he's making up excuses. This was a plot to get me out. During the questioning, and it was very polite, but it was, hey, did you look at data on Sutherland? How did you pick him? They wanted to know. He gets up. Before he gets up, he had his books and his notebooks just like I do. He slams them on the table. He says, this is bullshit. Talking to fellow Republicans.
I've heard this part of the story.
Yeah. He said it 4 or 5 times. He stands up and he walks out. He says, I don't need you guys.
Which I guess was true. that turned out to be true.
The Republican Party is divided. We can spend a whole bunch of time on that. He's part of those that will have no problem writing Democrat bills to make it look like you're bipartisan. But again, you're violating people's rights and stuff, so I won't do that. So they censure him. I think Skagit County Republican Party censured him as well 2 years ago. Don't quote me on that. 2 years later, he has a voting record. The bill I mentioned before, SHB 2368, that takes our taxpayer money and starts handing it out to people that are undocumented. The Skagit County Republican Party absolutely censured him recently. Mm-hmm. That was this last session for that bill. Terrible bill, violates Republican principles across the board, and they censured him as our representative. This is not who we want representing us, and they censured him. The LD 39th Republican Party in Snohomish County, because this position encompasses two parts of 2 counties. Right? Yep. So the 39th District Party in Snohomish County also censured him on the same issue. Then, during the executive board meeting for the Snohomish County Republican Party, the motion was introduced to censure him countywide, and that passed. So the county party censured him in Snohomish and Skagit, and the LD39 party. Skagit doesn't have an LD39 Republican Party, by the way. It's
too small.
It's a big county thing.
Yeah.
All other districts meet it once a month.
Sure.
So they run it differently. So every Republican Party in this district that could censured Sam Lowe for that bill. I'm going to go somewhere where I've hesitated because I don't like. They're slamming me. They're making me look like a friend of a terrorist, right? Mm-hmm. They're talking about law enforcement problems. Let's talk about Sam Lowe's law enforcement problems for just a minute.
Let's do it.
What some people don't know or understand is Sam Lowe has been arrested by law enforcement.
For what? I gave what's his name the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give Sam the benefit of the doubt.
I don't know the exact charge, but I'll tell you why, and then whatever charge that would be. A creeper alert, if you will. So him and his first wife are having problems, and they had a couple of kids together. I take it she's seeing someone else at this point, but so he goes to her house to get the kids. I might not have every detail, but I'm painting the picture of what was going on. I might get a fact wrong. I wasn't there. I do have the reports. If I was prepared, I would have printed them up.
There's domestic tension. There's domestic tension.
Yes, okay. It's a domestic dispute. Apparently, he's creeping around the house, and he's looking in the window, and law enforcement gets called. I believe it was the estranged wife. It might have been a neighbor seeing some creeper looking through the window. Law enforcement gets called. They're
and then, I'm sorry, I want to be as neutral as possible.
Absolutely.
The story is he was a creeper through the window. It could be that he wasn't a creeper through the window, and the wife wanted to get him off the property. And I'm not saying I have any idea what happened. We just know there was tension, and cops are called, right? I mean,
and the subsequent action by law enforcement would lend credence to what he may have been doing.
Okay, continue.
Again, I have the documents at home on my computer.
Oh, okay.
I have verified this, so it's not a rumor. It's not something I heard. Yeah, I did hear it. It was a rumor. I did my research.
You have evidence
and
to
now
back up the. Yeah.
So, law enforcement shows up. He's arrested, put in the back of the car. She files, or they file, or together, law enforcement and her, they file for a restraining order against Sam Lowe, and she gets it. Judge signs off, and she gets the restraining order. I'm not positive if this was the same incident or another incident, because at this other time he has the kids in the car, and he's like chasing her in a car for hours. He has the kids in the back of the car for what I heard was 6 hours. No potty breaks, no food, no water, no nothing. He's just trying to catch up to her, get her, whatever. That was either a different incident or part of this. Maybe he caught up to her at her house, and he had some of the kids in the car. The details.
Domestic tension.
Domestic tension.
Yeah.
But handcuffed, arrested, domestic violence, a restraining order issued against him. And I have those documents. So Sam Lowe is not the squeaky clean guy that he would have himself in these papers look like.
I was going to say, now, again, this was not approved by, no candidate authorized this ad, so keep that in mind. But, this was when they were attacking Zephaniah that, no, this wasn't it. One of them called sexual misconduct. Yes, Zephaniah is linked to from explosive charges and a pattern of sexual misconduct, but you're saying Sam Lowe is the one that actually has a restraining order due to some unverified amount of domestic tension.
And it was initiated by his, what I believe was, at the time was his estranged wife. They were not together at the time, I believe.
But still technically married, sort of.
Yeah, going through their breakup or whatever, a restraining order was issued against them. And again, law enforcement showed up, handcuffs, back of the car. Did he go to jail? I don't know. I didn't get into that level of detail. But let's go back to what Sam's doing now as a legislator.
Because ultimately that's what matters. I mean, this sounds a little realpolitik when I say it this way. Like his domestic issues, while that sucks for whoever's involved in the domestic issue, we're talking about the impact that he has on every single resident of Washington
Most people
State.
care about, well, what are you going to do for me lately?
Yes.
That's why I've never brought this up. It's negative. I have verified it, but let's not go there. I would hope that he wouldn't go there. I'm squeaky clean. I've never had a problem with law enforcement, never been arrested, restraining orders, nothing. I have no love children. I'm squeaky clean. They have to make stuff up against me. Oh, he's linked to this guy with explosives. It's all false. But they have to make up stuff. They have to lie, cheat, and give half-truths in order to get to me, to the voters, to change their mind about me. So I'm proud of that. It's not fun, but I'm glad they have to go to that level to get me versus
having
stuff.
real stuff to work with.
Dig up my past that maybe I had something 20 years ago, or when I was 13 or 18 or something. No, there's nothing. So I'm a military veteran, honorably discharged, scientist, Gonzaga University, cancer drug development, married, 4 kids, and I'm fighting for my kids right now. So that's me compared to, say, the Sam Lowe's of the world. But he took it, so he defeats me with hundreds of thousands of dollars. When he was at that 39th meeting where he lost his temper, by the way, this is a funny story kind of. One of the people that went with him, when one of the PCOs asked him, well, are you going to quit your county council job then? He says, well, no, I think I can do both. One of his people looks at him and goes, what? Wait, I thought you were going to, right? No, he's going to do both. A term is two sessions, 2 years. Every 2 years we run for re-election. So there's 2 sessions, a long and a short, a 105-day session and a 65-day session. So of the 2 sessions, he's down there. It adds up to roughly 6 months. That's 6 months. You're down in Olympia doing a hard job.
24 hours a day sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And yet you're being paid by Snohomish County constituents, left and right. The county council position pays
it's like $137,000.
$137,000. That's $275-ish thousand in a term. $275,000 is getting paid, 6 months of which
a quarter
of
the time.
So, what's that? $70,000 getting paid. That's like if I worked at McDonald's Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, and I'm getting paid, and then I get a job at Burger King on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 11 to 3.
And you're still getting paid for McDonald's.
And I look at McDonald's and say, well, you still got to pay me. Most people would say, no, they don't, right? You're not there working. You're there working somewhere else, getting paid for that job, $70,000 a year roughly, $140,000. So $275 and $140, what's that? 300 something, 310? No.
It's a lot. We don't have to sit here and do math.
Voters that learn that, they look at that and say, wait a minute. Sutherland was down there working hard. He's doing good. He's got an excellent voting record by the CPAC, JBS. He's fighting the bad bills. He's doing public hearings on election integrity. He's writing good bills. He's got a bill passed for pro-law enforcement. And you took him out and you're doing that? They don't understand it. So that's the message I need help getting out to people when they compare us either personally.
Let's say it in one sentence. Sam Lowe is currently elected to 2 seats.
Yes.
Snohomish County Councilman.
Yes.
And state representative.
And the county council position is a full-time position. It's a lot. Ask John Coster. He used to be a councilman and a legislator. They're both basically full-time positions if you want to do your job correctly, if you want to serve your constituents properly. Sam, when that was brought up in that 39 meeting where the PCOs are, how can you do both? He's like, well, I really only put in about 3 hours a day at the county.
I think I remember hearing that.
And PCOs are like,
did you just say that out loud?
$137,000 a year we're paying you, and you really only put in 3. How do we know you're even doing the 3 hours?
Yeah.
They were fiberglass. And now you're going to go take another one. Maybe you're going to do that one half-assed, if I'm allowed to say that. You talk to other county council people, they're saying, no, to do this job, I mean, we might be in not session. We might be in committee or voting on this or that.
Yeah.
Maybe that adds up to 3 hours.
But you got other stuff to do outside
you
of
gotta,
that.
You got to go meet constituents who are having problems with a river eroding your property. You got to come up with solutions and get back past it. You got to come up. That's a full-time job because, believe me, there are a lot of people in this county that are hurting. There are a lot of businesses that are hurting, and they need your time and attention to help them pass something to relieve their misery, if you will, some unknown whatever. It's a full-time job. And he's down in Olympia 6 months per term doing legislative stuff while Snohomish County are paying him full-time, and he's not here. Now, he'll argue, well, I get on the phone and I can do emails. I hope you're not...
I can write 2 emails at the same time because I have 2 hands. Yeah.
I hope, Sam, you're not using your office in Olympia to write emails about county council work because that's illegal. I don't know if... I just said that. I don't know if he's doing that or not. Does he have a hallway bathroom he goes to, or does he go out to his car? He's still on campus.
Is it a law that when you're sitting in that office, the only work that you're allowed to do? I'm unfamiliar with the law that you're referring to.
So taxpayers pay for that office that you're using, right? So if legislators have gotten themselves into trouble when they're using the phone, they'll call, or an email, and they'll call back home in their district talking about campaign stuff. Just talking on the phone, talking about campaign. That's an RCW violation.
Okay.
You cannot use taxpayer-equipped stuff to do personal campaign. And that's not to say you got on the phone, you order a Subway sandwich. No, right. I don't think anyone would care about that because you need to eat to do your job, right? But if you're doing this job using that equipment, that's most likely a problem. I'm not a lawyer, but I just know.
Couldn't a public records request solve that really fast?
Yeah.
Just throwing that idea out there. Okay. Yeah.
I'd like to. I mentioned to a friend, hey, do a public records request on his calendar. It's public information. I used to meet with thousands of people while I'm down in Olympia. I suspect I meet a lot more people, my constituents, small business owners. I can't tell you the schedule I had meeting with different people. I suspect he's not meeting with as many people, if any.
Well, how could you if you're in
That's right.
both places at once?
You're doing a full-time job. You're in Olympia doing a full-time job in Snohomish maybe in your office, maybe it's your cell phone, maybe it's the laptop, personal laptop, maybe it's a government laptop. You have both. If you have a government cell phone, government laptop, you got a personal cell phone, personal laptop. I'll just assume he's using his personal stuff, but are you in the office? So you're using your legislative office to do that? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, we'd like to see your calendar because part of your job is meeting with constituents. Some people just show up in Olympia and they've never been, they see the Ledge building and they're taking pictures and their family. Hey, let's meet our legislator.
He's right there, yeah.
And they find out and they knock on the door. They talk to your legislative assistant. Hey, we're such and such from, part of your district. We'd like to, can we meet him? Can we shake his hand, get a picture with him? That's what we call a drop-in. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what you're doing.
You got to take that drop-in.
You're going to take it. If you're doing your job, you're not going to turn them away.
Right.
I would not turn anyone away. I don't know, Sam, how many people are you meeting with? Are you doing your job the way your constituents would want you to? Meet with them if they go down there. Do you have time to meet with them? Or are you so busy doing these two jobs, you don't have time to meet with your constituents? This is information. It would be interesting to hear from people that were perhaps turned away because their representative didn't have time to meet with them. Mm-hmm. I've been on the House floor debating bills. A drop-in will show up, and they're like, hey, can we? Well, he's on the House floor debating bills, and the security people, what they do, they take a note.
Write it to you.
They bring it in, they put it on your desk. It's a yellow note piece of paper. They put it down, and you're listening to bills, and you look at the note, such and such is here from your district, waiting outside. And I'll send word back out, say, give me a few minutes, and I'll be right out. We have, pages and things that they help us like that. But I will, in between one bill and another, because it takes a while to introduce yet another bill. It'll take a few minutes, and we're not going to vote for, who knows, it could be hours. But so I will then run outside. I'll meet with them. I'll let them know I'm very busy. Glad to meet you. Let's take a picture, whatever. And I got to get back on the House floor. I will break myself away from the House floor to go meet with constituents. I have no idea if Sam's rising to that level of doing your job performance. I think I went above and beyond. The Republican Party, by the way, Sam was censured by 3 Republican parties. I was overwhelmingly endorsed at the same time by the Snohomish County Republican Party, the Skagit County Republican Party, and the 39th Legislative District Republican Party. Unanimously in Skagit, and I think unanimously in the 39th, and one person at the county level was a friend of Sam's. So Nate Naring and his mom, 2 people, said nay on my endorsement. Mm-hmm. The other hundreds of people, it was a loud yay. To put it in perspective. So as a Republican, Sam Lowe's not doing so well within the party. And again, the message that gets out needs to differentiate who Sam Lowe is as a Republican and who Robert Sutherland is as a Republican. They need to understand that difference, and I believe I'm the better candidate, the better elected official. I think he needs to come back home, do his county job, do it well, and leave that work to someone else like myself who has some ethics, a foundation with which not to stray from. I'm voting no on bad bills. I don't care if the Democrats are not going to like me for all these no votes and these floor speeches I give showing that's a terrible bill. When you try to limit or outlaw magazines for our hunting guns, for our fun guns, AR-15s, you go out target practice. When you say we can't have magazines for that, unless limited to 7 rounds or 10 rounds, sometimes we need that for home self-defense. And if you've seen any videos of home invasions, this one Asian lady I'm thinking of had a handgun, and it had, I think, a magazine of 12 or 14 rounds in it. 4 guys break in, middle of the night, wakes her up, she has her gun, and she's defending herself. And she used all of those bullets, hit one of the 4, maybe 2, I forget. And they went running, and one's outside, and I think later bled to death, maybe died, if I have the right video in mind. Mm-hmm. She needed every round in that gun, or who knows what would have happened to her in the middle of the night with these 4 dudes. Young, teenagers, young 20s, whatever. And it was kind of grainy. You couldn't tell, but a relatively attractive young lady, maybe in her 30s or something, and you got 4 dudes breaking down her door in the middle of the night. Okay, so when they do that in Olympia, the Sam Lowe's of the world will just get up and give, well, statistics, I'll get up there with a little bit of passion. This is a difference between me and a lot of legislators, not all of them. I'll get up there and say, Madam Speaker, this is not just a bad bill. This is a terrible bill. This violates the rights of your constituents and mine, right? And I'll go down the list. I'll hit hard, politely, professionally. If you're not, they'll just gavel you. Again, that's going to be the difference between a Lowe and myself. If you're too busy on the House floor talking to Snohomish, not paying attention to the debates or not standing up and giving your opinion, yay or nay on a particular bill, because you're too busy with your laptop voting in Snohomish on a particular whatever, that's what he says he does, you're not doing your job, right? And most voters don't understand this game and why Sam doing what he's doing is not a good idea. John Coster, who's done both jobs, put out an email 2 years ago when Sam was challenging me saying, listen, I've been a county councilman. I've been a state representative. They're both full-time jobs. Robert Sutherland is doing a decent job. What you're doing cannot be done well.
Yeah, no, I mean,
you can get the pay. You can get the paycheck, but you're not going to be able to do the job well. And that was the email John Coster put out. He said, and he concludes it. So voters beware, vote, accordingly or whatever. The average voter, Democrat or Republican. Now they're going to have 2 Republicans to choose from. Democrat voters won't necessarily like what Sam's doing.
Well, I was going to say, it's very clear what your message to Republicans has been this entire time we've been talking. What's your message to Democrats?
I've touched on it already.
Well, give me a soundbite so we can clip it out. What's your message to Democrats?
Democrats own homes, too. Democrats are paying too much in property taxes, too. Democrats have children going to school. Democrats can use a little more money in their pocket. Inflation, groceries, my goodness. Can we cut their state-level property taxes by cut it and lower their property taxes by 1/3? That's a Democrat. That's not a Democrat or Republican issue. It's a Washingtonian issue, because that bill, if passed, would cover the entire state. So my district, Republican and Democrat, would both benefit. Cutting property taxes would help put a damper on rising rents. So the guy that owns the home and he's renting it out, and he's going to have to raise rents yet again because insurance is going up, taxes are going up.
Yep.
If the taxes were to go down, he doesn't need to raise the rent. He may actually lower it, depending.
Right.
That would benefit Democrats and Republicans. Supporting law enforcement, not tying their hands, would benefit all of us, Democrats included. Again, when I show my literature to Democrats that are willing to listen, they're like, I don't disagree with you on any of these points, Robert. Now, just give me another example of something that a Democrat would be for, and me, I wouldn't be. I'm not for taking away people's rights on guns. Some Democrat voters, some Republican voters would be okay with that. But that's a violation of a God-given constitutional right. Not only a Washington State Constitution, but a national or federal Constitution. You'll never get me to compromise on our rights. Now, if a Democrat doesn't want the right of free speech, there's nothing I can do there. That's the foundation of which our republic was created. I will not yield. I will not stray from that. This is where I call myself a real Republican, because I'm principled. I'm not going to stray from our Constitution, which is the law of the land, or we go down a never land into a lawless society where politicians can do anything to you. They're doing it right now. They're taking our money. They're taking our properties through taxation. Do we own our property? I'm paying $600 a month. It's an average home, 2,400 square foot, one level. It is on 5 acres, but it's out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, average home. I pay $600 a month in property taxes. I pay my mortgage off. Well, I still got to pay insurance and taxes.
Yep.
So $600 in taxes. I forget what my insurance is. $200 a month.
Yeah. So you're still at $800 a month, just with no
now I
no
can
debt.
I can stop paying the insurance. Okay, that's
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But I can't. No. Right. Who's going to do that? So, at least the $600, I'm renting it from the government. Why are we don't tax food, but why would we tax someone's home?
I would argue why do we tax anything, but that's another question. I think the more important point that you pointed out is that, okay, what should or we shouldn't be taxing is a debate we can have, but if we have a surplus and that surplus covers enough for us to completely eliminate a tax, why not do it?
There's two things you can do with a surplus. Well, there's many things you can do with a surplus, two of which I would favor. Let's just cut a check and give it back to them. Whoever paid the taxes, cut them a check. Or do a tax cut using the surplus money to pay for it. Mm-hmm. That's giving us our money back over time. Right? I don't have to pay the instead of $600, I'm only paying $400 a month in taxes, right? So what, $2,000 or so a year? Yeah. Give it back to us that way. That would solve two things. I own my home a little bit more, not renting it from this government agency and that one and this one. Okay, we got rid of one of them. Now let's work on the other ones. Can we fund the counties another way versus a property tax? I've got some ideas on that. But let's have the discussion.
Right.
So now I forgot your question.
What was the message for Democrats? So should we my next question?
Thank you.
What's your message for independents?
It would be the same thing. Independents want I'm almost an independent myself. I look at the person and what they stand for. That's typically a Republican. I have voted Democrat before against a Republican, so I want to put that out there. This is years ago, but that's me as an independent. Because it's a numbers game in Olympia, if you have more Democrats than Republicans, now the majority party runs all the committees. They own Olympia. You get the scraps as the minority party. So because of that, I would probably never vote for a Democrat, knowing it's a numbers game. I wouldn't want to give an extra Democrat legislator to the Democrat caucus down there. So you got to vote smartly. If you don't like what Olympia is doing, if you're an independent, if you're a Democrat, you might want to consider this is a numbers game. The independents and the Republicans can solve very few problems as a minority party, as a minority caucus. So if you get someone like myself that's a grounded, solid Republican, a good Republican is going to be able to help Democrats, independents, and Republicans alike, children, elderly. Our policies will help everybody. You might, again, not agree with a right that we have as a society, the right to freely assemble peacefully, and then the government says stay home and shut down your churches. You're starting to get into that area where the government's telling you, yeah, you don't go to church this week or this year, right? That's, in my opinion, I'm not a lawyer, but in my opinion, that's a violation of our right to assemble. We can go on and on. So rights are one category. Policies that don't violate the rights or that shore up our rights are something independents and Democrats mostly would support, I believe. You can never get – there's always going to be 10% on the right and the left. You can't get them to agree on anything. So the 80% of us
in the middle
that are halfway intelligent and rational and can tell good from bad, what would be good for society or bad for society, if we can take the politics out of Olympia, you and I and the 80%, we could solve all the problems in this state. I'm confident of that. Now we can take the politics out of it. Who cares if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent? Good policy is being passed. The system was designed to do that. That's why we debate. That's why they have us get elected every 2 years. If you're not doing that, the voters should vote you out.
Yep.
I'm being taken out not because of voters, but because of special interest groups and PACs and hundreds of thousands of dollars of negative ads that are lies, half-truths that lead you to believe the wrong conclusion, and voters looking at 2Rs saying, well,
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, Robert, boy, I didn't know that about him, right? And Sam, he plays baseball. He's got a dog, right? They're being swayed by big money from big corporations and PACs and special interest groups. And that's the weakness. If you ask me, that's the weakness of our system. Why not let the voters in the 39th determine who the representative is, not PACs from Seattle, from other, I'm not sure if any of them are out of state, but outside of the 39th are pouring money in to help the Democrat Party pass bills. And they're doing it with a fake R, if you ask me. Voters would want, if I had the money and I could get that message out through video, TV, radio, written communication, and flyers like this. One flyer, if you're careful, mine was not as big, postcard, $20,000 to around 20,000 people.
Yeah, dollar per
person. There's 157,000 people in my district, 110,000 registered voters in my district. If I wanted to reach out to independents, Democrats, and Republicans, per flyer, it's $110,000. How many flyers we have here, right? And the
seven, yeah.
And the fact that I'm getting them
means they're hitting everybody.
They're hitting everybody because some of these are they're making Sam look like a Democrat. You would think they'd target Democrat voters or independents, or both, but I'm getting them. They're just blasting it out. They're spending a ton of money to mislead voters on who I am versus who Sam Lowe is. Voters, I don't care if you're Democrat, independent, or Republican, do not like to be lied to or scammed. Like you go to buy a used car, right? No one likes to be lied to or scammed. Oh, never been in an accident. Yeah, it has. Runs perfect until you drive it, right? No one likes to be lied to or scammed or misled. That's what these are, and it's taking big money to do it. I don't have big money. I'm the average guy playing in a rich man's game, and, they're hurting me.
Is there anything that we did not discuss that you'd like to put on the table before we wrap this up?
We've touched on a lot. I'm just going to say, if there's someone out there listening that would like to help someone like me financially.
What's the website?
www.sutherlandforrep.com.
Is that the number 4 or FOR?
That's the number 4. So my last name, sutherlandforrep.com. Email is info@sutherlandforrep.com. You can go to my website. There's a donation button. You click it. You go to Antidote. It's a very safe, secure website for making donations. Please do. I could use your help. If you want I almost said real Republican because typically that's our base. You got the Democrats vying for, and we just kind of blur the lines like, okay, you can have them and I'll take these. This is an R on R, and you touched on the point. What are you going to do for Democrats? What are you going to do for independents? I've outlined that. My policies will help them. So if you are of an independent mind or even a Democrat mind that doesn't like what this fake Republican's doing, he's misleading us. He's going down there. He's got 2 gigs. He's getting paid for both when he's not doing them. So I don't know, if you're anything like me, you're not happy with that. And you can take care of that. You can solve that problem by voting for the better candidate, the better person that will not mislead you. Everything I've said has been factual to the best of my ability. I'm not here to mislead anybody. When I put out my mailer for the primary, I had, again, QR codes, links. When I said something, you could push the button. CPAC, like the CPAC rating, I'm 94, Sam was 65. Push that link or scan that code. It goes right to it. Don't take my word for it. I'm not saying I'm great. They're saying I'm great as far as being a Republican, a good voting record, and all that. Everything I say, I back it up. There's nothing backed up here.
Oh, no, I mean, you heard me laughing about it.
Yeah, these are just fake accusations. Yes, he was arrested for explosives. Charges dropped upon investigation because there's nothing there. Okay, that's misleading you. And a link me to the arrested explosives guy. There's no link.
Because you looked at the same church once. Yeah.
There's no link. They're misleading the voters purposely because they know money and negativity wins over a certain percentage of the voters. Who has time to research all this? I do because I'm in the business.
Yeah.
That's why I researched Zeph. Didn't research him. That
would take some time to,
That would take me a long time. I don't have it. I'm in an election campaign. So I said, hey, let's meet I reached out to Kathy, by the way. Hey, let's sit down and see where our policies align. Mm-hmm. When I'm in Olympia, I don't look for everything we disagree with. I look for what Democrat legislators have that, hey, no, I can work with you on that. I find ways to work with them. On the Public Safety Committee, I remember a Democrat coming up to me, my first session, we're halfway through. I think we're wrapping up the committee portion of it and going on to the House floor portion of our session. And she approached me. She said, Rip Sutherland, my party loves you, the Democrats. Mm-hmm. Because Roger Goodman, public safety, good guy, common sense legislation, good for public safety or whatever, mental health, whatever legislation, if I agreed with it, I voted with him against my Republican colleagues. That's working across the aisle. Of course, they accuse me of not.
Right.
I've done it. I can't. Another thing, most people don't understand. When I looked at a friend of mine who's been with me in politics for a long time, and I go, he mentioned something about, well, they're saying it because, you don't work across the aisle as, maybe as much as him. I go, John, do you understand? Shouldn't have said his name. Do you understand? I vote with Democrats probably 50% of the time. And he's amazed, like,
flabbergasted.
Where's the Robert I know?
Yeah.
They're doing terrible things. I go, yeah, no. The other 50 are the terrible things. There's probably half the bills we vote on down there and debate are what I call fix-it bills. You pass a piece of legislation one session, it causes trouble. You leave a city out of a district that's supposed to get funding, and they're in the district. Mm-hmm. And you inadvertently didn't put them in this bill.
So you got to rush together and...
You got to fix it. Let's put the city that's in this district in so they can get the proper funding for their schools or something. Mm-hmm. We're all like, yeah, common sense. It was inadvertently a mistake made in the bill. None of us caught it. Yeah, and we fix it. It's a 98-0 vote. There's 98 reps in Olympia. Those are 98-0 votes if everyone's there, not sick or in a car accident or something. So a lot of the bills are fix-it bills. They're good for our communities and the state. I vote with Democrats a lot. It's the controversial ones where they're raising our taxes while we're bringing in surplus funds. I can't imagine I would vote for any bill, no matter how good it is, if it raises taxes when we could have paid for it with surplus money. And what they do is they take the surplus money, spend it on new programs or expand existing ones. And then here's this good thing we could do for society, but we have to raise taxes. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example of that. Marysville approached me. So Nate Naring, John Naring's the mayor, Nate Naring's county councilman. They come to my office. We've got this program where for kids that are graduating school, they're not going to college, they don't want to go to the military, to get them training, plumbing, electrical, carpentry. Mm-hmm. We're starting this program. We've got the specialty trades people in to train the kids and all that. We need $1.5 million just to buy the equipment for this. No one has, these tradespeople don't have, $20,000 welders to just give away. Mm-hmm. $1.5 million, which in Olympia is absolutely...
That's chump change. It's a dime.
I was on the appropriation committee. We would hand out $5, $10, $50, $20 million every 5 minutes or so to these groups that are not accountable to taxpayers, and who knows if what they're doing is any good. Mm-hmm. Do you have any statistics on that? Is your program working or not? We don't know. We just hand it out. I'm a no on it, by the way, but that's what goes on in Olympia. $1.5 million for our kids coming out of school.
For trades, yeah. That's
a one-time cost for to start up equipment. I was a yes through committee, yes on some amendments to shore it up a little, make it a little, yes. House floor, an amendment was brought up to pay for it with a property tax increase. I voted no on my own. It wasn't my bill, but it's from my district, my people. I support it all the way, and I voted no. It's going to pass anyway. I knew that because the Democrats are going to get a tax increase. Mm-hmm. Great program that they want over in Snohomish County. Let's just raise their taxes.
Right. When it's literally a dime. It's like...
It's nothing. These are the games, the types of games they play in Olympia. Can't we just get some common sense people down there? I'd like to think I'm common sense. I'm a scientist, cancer drug development. I don't look at something and try to prove it. I look at the data and try to see what the data tells me it is, right? We can do the same thing in politics if we would. I bring that mindset to Olympia. Our roads are clogged. You look at Highway 9 at 3 in the afternoon, miles of traffic. and lights, right? They're not doing anything. I talked to a Democrat in Snohomish County, Dave Summers. He's our county executive. County executive. This was a couple years ago. It might have been my first session. Let's just say it was 4 years ago. I was at some meeting having to do with this, that, and the other countywide stuff, including traffic congestion. It might have been the trestle meeting where they were discussing options on the trestle. The meeting ends, and Dave and I are paths cross, and we're just chit-chatting. And whether he brought her up or I did, we started talking about traffic congestion. And in all seriousness, he looks at me and he said, well, Robert, that's a problem that just, it can't be solved. It can't be solved. You know, there's nothing we can do. I did, out of respect.
If you think that way, then yes, you are correct.
Right? A problem that can't be solved. Well, Dave, and I didn't say this, again, respect, I'm not going to challenge your thought. It blew me away. You've given up on solving this major problem. It's only going to get worse. We get 200,000 new people coming here a year. 200,000, that's a big city every year, okay? And they have cars. No, Dave, I've lived in Spokane, Northern California, the Bay Area. I've lived in an area. I went to Gonzaga in Spokane, the Spokane Valley. I know the traffic where fairly major roads slam into railroad tracks, a train comes, traffic backs up, right? They dug under it. Took the light out. Traffic flows. They have like 5-lane, I think it was Sprague Avenue, 5 lanes going this way, 5 lanes going that way. There's no cars on their roads. When I lived there, and this was 98, I came over on the west side. Traffic was busy then. I go there now, free flowing traffic. Mm-hmm. Take the trestle that has 2 lanes going this way, 2 lanes going that way.
Yep.
Okay. Tear it down.
I like to build a second one better. Just leave it there. If it's working, leave it there and build another one. Yeah.
They want the lane we have. They're thinking of maybe putting a 3rd lane in. It's going to cost $1.2 billion or something, and let bikes and buses use it.
So who's going to take a bike on a trestle?
This was the plan. I was in the meeting. I'm telling you, and a walking lane. Okay?
Yeah, for the 2 tweakers that walk across the trestle every day.
I did not raise my hand in that meeting because I'm not an engineer. There's nothing to comment on this. This is ridiculous. It would take them X amount of years to do that. It was 1 or 2.2 billion. I forget the cost.
Can you build a new trestle with 2.2 billion or close? You don't have to answer that. I'm just
my estimation. Not an engineer.
Yeah.
Would be about $4 billion.
Okay, so half the money it would take to build a new trestle is for a bike lane.
We could save the 1.2 or $2 billion on it. Just leave it alone. Give it to the bikes, the cars, the pedestrians, and the motorcyclists. Build a double-decker over here. Build a Golden Gate Bridge. Not quite that luxurious. Right. Build a Golden Gate Bridge. Double-decker. 4 lanes, 6 lanes, whatever we need, going that way, and the other lower deck going that way. Something like that. Traffic congestion gone. Yes, they're going to more efficiently get on the freeway, the I-5 or the Highway 9, but we got to fix those too. Mm-hmm. Right? We have to build more lane capacity to solve this problem. It's doable. I've seen it done. I lived in the Bay Area. They had expressways. One way, I forget how many lanes, 4, 5, 6 lanes, expressways. And then, coming back the other way. We had a lot of traffic, believe me.
But it moved?
But it moved. I used to commute in. I worked there. Mm-hmm. That's how I got into biotech. And they have double-decker bridges or whatever you call them. The Oakland Bridge going to Oakland. You got X amount of lanes going that way, X amount coming this way, and it handled the population there, which was a lot more than Washington, or our cities here. We can solve these problems. It will take some money, but going from $2 billion that does nothing. The study, by the way, I didn't wrap that point up. So the study on adding the lane and the bus and bikes and all that would be done in like 10 years. And they projected traffic in 10 years would be X amount worse. Forget the percentages. Because right now, to go from 204 on La Trestle to the I-5 is, I think they said 40 minutes. 40 minutes.
When it's moving, it's like 6.
Yes. Yeah. It's like 3 miles.
Yeah.
At 60 miles an hour. It take you.
Okay, 3 minutes then. Yeah.
Take you minutes. Takes about 40. When they showed this expansion and add a lane and buses and all, 10 years later, and the traffic's going to increase, they estimated the time for that same distance would be 45 minutes.
That's thinking. That's using your money well.
It got worse.
Yeah.
That was their plan they had up on the board. And I'm like, that's not.
Am I the only one?
That's not a solution.
Yeah.
What's the traffic going to be for the 10 years you're in construction, right? Let's not even go there. That's not a solution. That's a waste of money, and it's a bad idea.
So solutions.
Build a new one. Build a big one to handle the projected traffic in our area. And doing it that way, you can add your bike lanes and your bus lanes, and
just build it in when you do it the first time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, walking across the trestle, give me a break.
They built this trestle. I don't remember the year. It was a while ago. It was designed for the traffic then, and it did a good job. It's falling apart. I'm on it all the time. It backs up. It's dangerous the way they slam people into each other.
I'm on it. I'm on it all the time too.
And 40 minutes to go 3 miles or 4 miles or whatever it might be. That's a problem. They don't think we can fix it. So Democrats, I'm talking to you now.
We can fix things.
Your party tells me to my face, we can't fix that. We can't help you with your rising property taxes. They tell you crime people are getting worse. No, you're letting the criminals out of jail more. And you're not prosecutors. You're not prosecuting the crime, many of the crimes. And now you're going back, and this guy that murdered someone, he got a 20-year sentence. You want to let him out now because it's been 12 years. And then they let him out, and you murder someone else. Democrats.
Well, with that, we've been having a long conversation, Robert.
I have solution to Democrat problems.
There we go. That's the one sentence I was looking for. That was one sentence I was looking for. So, Robert, I really appreciate you taking the time again to come here. This has been a very fascinating conveation.
Let's go another 2 hours.
Another 2. Well, I got to eat, man.
I have a solution for that.
Yes. You can come back in and do another 2 hours. I don't mind. But I appreciate you coming, and I wish you as much luck as you can in your race.
And we have
Sutherland 4, number 4,
rep.com.
For rep.com.
We haven't even talked about kids and education and letting the money follow the kid so the parents can decide what educational facility they want their kid to go to. Mm-hmm. Give parents the choice. Get kids in the inner cities. Schools are failing and they can't move them. Give the parents a choice of that.
Right.
Democrat solutions. It's not Democrat. Democrats will benefit from that. Mm-hmm. It's a common sense Washingtonian solution. Forget the parties. Let's put our heads together, common sense, and fix our problems.
Absolutely. Robert Sutherland, I'm going to end it. I know you want to keep going. I'm going to end it. So thanks again for coming on. This has been Dylan Moore with IRETA TV, which you can find at ireta.tv. And Robert Sutherland, running for LD 39.
State Representative, Legislative District 39, Position 1. Appreciate your support financially to help me get across the finish line. Also appreciate your vote, knowing you're going to send someone down there that's a common sense guy. If you've listened to this discussion for an hour or so, I hope you come away understanding I want to fix problems. That will help everybody. So appreciate it.